So there comes a point when you get so depressed that you stop caring about social conventions. Like you get a little bit jaded. Like ordinarily making video content talking about really personal stuff is not really socially acceptable. I mean, it is, but it's not cool, it's not, it's made out to be kind of embarrassing, especially in, what do they call it, the manosphere. Like men are supposed to, like, for example, not do this sort of thing. They're supposed to, like, be all tough and not too introspective and focus on other people's problems and just like suck it up and take the hits and keep this professional image of I'm this invincible force, like my personality is an enigma, that sort of thing. So, but screw that, I mean, most of the people that would have been through that have gone through similar things that I've survived lost their minds. And like most of the people, frankly, most people wouldn't have mentally or physically survived what I survived. Now, that might sound interesting, like I'm about to tell that story. I'm not. Some other time. The truth is, the details, it's not unheard of. It's not like in this day and age where everybody's heard of the most craziest stuff because of the internet. Like, it's not like a super special thing. It's a thing that happens, even though the vast majority of people don't have direct experience with those things. They hear about things like that, so they're aware. And I honestly think the details of like what happened and what I went through doesn't matter. But what is worth sharing is everything that I've learned from those things. That's another reason I think some of my insights might be of use to people, I don't know, in a similar spot in life, like struggling. And I don't want to, so yeah, I'll just talk about that. I've been struggling in life a lot lately, and I'm not embarrassed about that. Society tries to tell me that I should be, but I think what would be embarrassing, here's where I half agree with the part about society telling people you should be embarrassed. Generally speaking, society tells people you should be embarrassed for publicly admitting or being this open and honest about your struggles. And where they're right about that is if your attitude is bad. Like if you're have this attitude of like, well, I should just whine and cry and give up and wallow in this state of, what is it called, like ruminating, bereavement or whatever. So, but I think there's nothing wrong with identifying the problem so that you can do something about it, and publicly perhaps using yourself as an example. I think that's where society needs to be like updated, like personal video content, for example, as one example of a way that people can feel encouraged to work through problems. You got to be realistic about the problems. And most people, whether they realize it or not, because our society is so fake and everybody wants to be respected and liked, they hide their vulnerabilities. And especially to strangers, they're always faking a performative, like the way they talk, the way they look, the way, like, it's hard to be authentic. It's hard to just be comfortable, to accept how you feel, who you are, what caused you to be that way. Not only is there some personal accountability, like that come to Jesus type of moment where you're gonna see things about yourself you don't like when you're that honest with yourself, but also recognizing how unfair your life circumstance is because of the evil and the wickedness of the world. It forces you to confront the problems with society, so you can't do that and not become some sort of like a political activist of some sort, like or like a, I don't know, like a preacher type of personality. That's what happened to me when I started to like try to solve my problems, and I got really honest and authentic with myself. I did a lot of self-reflecting and introspective, just to figure out how to like salvage my life, because I was in such a dark place mentally for so many years, and I missed out on so much. It's a long story, but I realized that gave me this insight, and I couldn't not see a lot of the injustice of the way things are in Western civilization, generally speaking. Not to say it's innately corrupt, like the principles, for example, like constitutional principles or moral principles, you could call them the laws of heaven and such, that most of Western civilization claims to represent and be founded upon and was originally inspired by, are true and good. Most of those principles are true and good, and I wholeheartedly believe in them. Like I would be a patriot and a constitutionalist too. However, the vast majority of people have evolved to become wicked, and that has been reduced. Those Western pinnacles and foundations that, like Christian beliefs and ideologies, for example, have been mostly a lie, in that they've been propagandized, like I don't know what you would call it. A nice idea sprinkled on top of the piles of bullshit that is Western civilization. It's just like corruption upon corruption upon corruption. And there are good people out there. Like, it's not all bad. There's very good people. That's why I keep wading through the bullshit and jumping through all the humiliation rituals. Like work is a humiliation ritual. You have to like sacrifice parts of your authentic character and do all this performative nonsense. Like, if you have to do like jury duty or anything that society forces you to do, this society just loves to contradict itself. It claims to be built upon the principles of protecting life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that's what the only reason government exists, for that all people are entitled by. And yet it loves to people love, especially white people, we love to force each other to do awful things that nobody wants to do, and everybody pretends to want to do that so that they can have a relationship with people. So it's just people competing for control over other people, and that's why Western civilization has mostly become a sort of hell on earth. It's become this very hollow, spiritually poisonous hell world where everybody's working relentlessly to use each other to reach a satisfaction that doesn't exist in the first place. And we all know it, and a lot of us are sort of waking up to it, but some of us only really see it for what it is after we've been through the side effects of and the betrayal that comes from believing in a fake system that you keep, investing in, thinking it's going to pay off, and you realize it really is just all manipulation and control and might is right mentality and barbarian competition. And the most relentless people do make it to the top. The most, like, people who sell their souls to the devil, so to say, like metaphorically speaking, like maybe literally too, who knows, they do make it to the top, and they do control most of the world, and that's how it really is, and it's all hidden. And so now that we live in a day and age where so many people are suffering so much and gaining this retroactive unforeseen insight into things, being all a very contemplative, thoughtful age where the common man, so to say, or the average lower class, slave class person is starting to actually think for the first time, really. And that's not even dependent on literacy, because literacy rates are, I think, going down, but we also have access to this unprecedented amount of indisputable evidence, even in light of all the fakery that comes from recent advancements in AI. We still have, like, you're never going to take away people's down-to-earth insight that comes from their subconscious mind, like, soaks up all these otherwise unrelated sources of undisputable audiovisual evidence or information. So when you hear about an event, for example, you get a very firm down-to-earth grasp, or at least their subconscious mind does without even realizing it, of what's actually happening. And that, compared against the ideal, has made everybody collectively disillusioned with Western civilization at an exponential rate. Or at least the corrupt part of it. Some of us that are still idealists believe that maybe it can come back, maybe decency and good faith in the culture can come back to America. I hate to be cynical, but realistically I don't see any actual evidence of that being likely from my lifetime of my whole life's experience up until now. But I know anything's possible. So I mean, I don't want to diss like the Western foundations. It's such a altogether. The bottom line is it's an evil, corrupt place, um, that is allows the worst people to exploit systems to enslave others indiscriminately, um, working cowardly from behind the scenes. And there's going to be major civil unrest and social reform, and who knows what shape that'll take, maybe civil war or, God forbid, or something like that. But because the contrast between the overwhelming majority of people can blatantly see the discrepancies or the contrast between the ideals and the corruption that is here, you know that there's going to be upheavals, like social, civil upheaval, and there already is in many places throughout America, for example, but and many other Western countries or Western influenced countries in Europe and whatnot. So, in any case, things are looking pretty bad, and it has an effect on all of us. Um, Basically, all of this factors into how I've been feeling recently. Losing my reservations and shyness to speak my truth and talk about some of these things, just to feel a little less invisible, because the existential angst and anger I feel at injustice that relates heavily to my depression has become so overwhelming. It feels as though the least I can do is help people suffering similarly with whatever content or creations I can, emotionally, would be some small amount of pulling my weight in this society, because I care. I care about ideals of justice and chivalry and things that are mostly dead in this honorless, godforsaken civilization. Because let's just call it what it is. The shame of seeing injustice and everywhere and disparity. Like, just look at the huge, is disparity the proper word, between rich and poor. It's not capitalism in principle that's the problem. It's the evil and greed and selfishness that leads to the exploitation of capitalism that's led to this extreme income inequality that's caused so many people to live as shadows of their former selves, or what they wanted to be or what they could be. So they're living in absolute dejection and misery, and sometimes their minds break and they become schizophrenic, and people become they have much harder time kicking addictions. The mental illness pandemic among young people, homeless population, it just goes on and on and on. When you look at the world unbiased, you start to see that, like, if I was God, for example, I would be wanting to just destroy this whole place and start over, like Noah's flood, etc. I hate to be that dark, but it's truly how I feel. It's truly the wickedness and evil of people, of human nature itself. It's very soul crushing, and once you look for the truth long enough and you see the reality of how awful things are, not to say it's completely awful, but just to make a generalization to get the point across, you lose all fear to talk about it and judge. Like, to me, the mark of an immature person, or like a child-brained adult, is to refuse to make any moral judgment, so they don't have to act on how they feel. Instead, they can pretend like they can have a sort of compromise where they're taking some from like the basics of survival from society without participating in society, without having a voice, having an influence, or doing anything, or engaging in any sort of civil duties or anything like that, and somehow think that at some point it's not going to turn around and enslave them. Well, it will, because that's what happens when good people don't do anything about the problems and they see the problems. It's kind of like karma. There's a lot of so-called Christians and spiritual or morally good people in the West who claim to care, and their whole lives are built around distracting themselves from reality with all sorts of insidious mental illness inducing vices that often the consequences manifest later in an unforeseen way. And that's kind of karmic as well. I don't feel bad for a lot of people that have terrible anxiety and depression. It's because they don't act on how they feel. They've settled it for a sort of denial, a sort of acknowledgement that things are unfair and evil, but they don't have the selflessness or the love or the courage to actually do anything about it. I don't respect people like that. So most adults, most Westerners, I don't respect at all. Um, and people say that I have a huge ego. I do. I wish everybody had more of an ego. I'm more partial to philosophies like Ayn Rand's objectivist philosophy, for example. Not, I don't agree with all the tenets in there, but we could, this society that wants to erase individual power and keep feeding the collective like this radical socialist utopian fantasy that's, by the way, only led to the mass starvation and death of millions of peasants throughout all of human history, time and time again. It's not real, and it's something that the government pushes so that the evil people that run the government from behind the scenes can control us, and big business and cabals of criminals and elites in high places. It's been the tale as old as time, since the beginning of human society. So essentially, this whole idea of let's all feed into the collective and empower people above us, and let's just vote more. It's just delegating the power over to people you shouldn't be trusting. The better philosophy is to do it yourself. Get in, fight, get your hands dirty, and make the changes you want to see based on how you feel. And your own heart is what you should be listening to. You should be your own moral judge. Are we not all spiritual offspring of God? Are we not all children of God? Like, some fake Christians like to twist Jesus Christ doctrine and say, for example, to justify their inability and moral cowardice to influence society in any way or confront any of the evil out there. They try to say, oh, Jesus said, judge not, or judge that you be not judged. He didn't say don't make any judgments. That's taken completely out of context. What he said is, to the measure that you judge is the measure that you'll be judged. So he's not saying don't judge. I know it sounds like that because of the grammatical, like the language itself, but only if it's taken out of context from the bigger picture, the essence of what he said, which is backed up by, his entire ministry in the scriptures. He's saying that you better be careful in how you make judgments, because it's karmic. However you judge others is how you'll be judged. The standard by which you judge society or other people is how God is going to judge you. And this was a repeating pattern in all. But Christ also said, he commanded Christians, any follower of Christ, he said, go unto all men and preach the word and cast out devils in my name and minister to the sick and the afflicted and clothe the naked and feed the hungry. And he said, if you've done it to one of the least of these, you've done it unto me. Meaning every single person matters. Those are the things that Jesus said, and there isn't a single Christian in America that actually gives their whole heart to God in Christ and goes out and preaches the word like that, the gospel, truly. Instead, we have fake, cheap imitations of Christ's doctrine to make money and all this other nonsense. So anyway, it is disappointing. And I'm not going to say that I'm the best Christian ever, but at least I have the guts to make a judgment of the evils of this civilization, so I can condemn it and say, there isn't a single part of it that you should worship or invest any faith in at all. Supposedly, the kingdom of God is bigger than all that and exists on earth now in the forms of a metaphysical state of mind, and where what the ideals that your heart is convicted to or should be. And anything that condones the evil that's in this civilization by affiliating with it, whether it's a political party or a movement or getting on the warpath and joining some BS militia or whatever, taking the law into your own hands, denying people their rights, whatever radical political bullcrap or terrorism or whatever nonsense, that would make you the most condemnable piece of trash, the most hypocritical possible person. And yet there's still people trying to do that, get on the warpath and still wave the cross or claim that they're Christian. They don't understand Christ or Christ's doctrine whatsoever, and that really pisses me off. I'm not going to say that I'm the best Christian ever, but I mean, I couldn't be even wanting to be Christian if I were to affiliate myself with this civilization, because it's just that corrupted. Now, I do believe God lets everything happen for a reason. And anything is possible, and God could do anything and change. But I also don't think God really intervenes until people start acting in faith. I think that human beings are acting in faith are sort of the catalyst for God's patterns on this earth. And that was the case with every single prophet that ever had any ministry or ever did anything productive for humankind throughout history, according to the scriptures, if that's the source of your moral authority that contributes to faith, as it is for me. And that's hard for people to understand. That's hard for people who have no familiarity with God or the scriptures, because they need a source of moral authority. And that's one of the reasons that people, the average modern Westerner who is, forsaken religious perspectives on to judge and to make any moral or value judgment whatsoever in reality, they typically fill that sort of void, that naturally occurring inclination to have a connection with the universe, to make solid value judgments, also for survival's sake and whatnot. They often go to government or people or getting popularity. To them, it's this comforting sort of like pseudo God that, instead of like having an accountability towards whatever they believe to be universal moral laws and truths, in other words, karma or morality. Different religions use different terms, or a moral conscience also works. They go to other people and think that, well, if the group has the majority rule over what it is or isn't, could or couldn't be considered good or bad, etc., if I just get in alignment with what the group thinks, that's all the moral authority I need, and that's what's gonna protect me. And that doesn't actually work, because the majority can be totally dead wrong about any given thing, moral, scientific, etc., whatever truth. They could have it totally backwards, as is proven throughout all of collective human history, time and time again. And humanity is more or less in an ever-evolving, changing state. So the majority rule of human beings will never give you a sense of inner spiritual fulfillment or safety or even protection of any kind against being accused of being some form or other of criminal, because human nature, without fidelity and accountability to moral law in the universe, from God, for lack of a better word, itself, is criminal energy. It always leads to the same self-destructive vices and patterns and behaviors, and there's worlds upon worlds of evidence that relate to this as well. So in any case, human nature without God is evil. Always has been. The natural man is the enemy of God, etc. The only way to really navigate life and not become a criminal in a criminal civilization is to essentially be born again, find God, find Christ, and reject the supposed moral authority of the majority rule. That's what it means to be Christian. And almost nobody, and that is to carry a cross. That is to be an outcast. That is to be publicly condemned, humiliated, crucified. It takes mad guts to do that. People going against the crowd is never the popular move. Obviously it's what'll get you misunderstood, rejected. So there's a huge price to pay for, true joy and spirituality that comes from fulfillment, knowing that you did the right thing, because the majority of people on this planet are and always have been rebellious to God, and so is and human civilization is the natural product of human nature, of people in that state. So that's why there's so few real Christians. It's because it's more easy. They're Christians in name only, and to me that's worse than having never been Christian at all. Christ said so himself. It's better for them not to have even known me than to, what did he say, know me and then do wrongfully. And many so-called Christians are trying to be comfortable with just totally unacceptable, perverted stuff that the majority wants to make has made normal. So in any case, I reject this world. I reject civilization. I've never lived a conventional life. I've never been popular. I've never been anybody. And I don't need anybody's validation in this society, because this society is totally and utterly wrong and cringy and embarrassing and stupid. And I think the best possible thing is for people to really find Christ and recognize that there's a bigger universe out there than worshiping mankind for mankind's sake. you could start to contemplate just all of God's creations in science, in the heavens, in physics, and like there's so many fields of science and studies that are the natural byproduct of originally intelligence creating and shaping matter in the way that led to the creation and birth and perpetuation of the human race. And so, for better or for worse, so basically, to me, that's such a more satisfying way to go about life,